Casio G-shock, the icon. The images the Casio G-shock line brings to me are ones of durability, ruggedness, and toughness. Watches that are built for purpose and uncompromising. In contrast, Rolex brings to mind elegance, style, luxury, and a price tag to match. The two brands could not be more different in terms of aesthetic, market positioning, and approach to watchmaking. And yet here we are with Rolex releasing the Rolex Deepsea Challenge, a schizophrenic Rolex that straddles a seemingly impossible middle ground between ruggedness, durability, functionality on the one hand, and luxury aesthetic and price tag on the other. This watch initially didn't make sense to me until I delved into the history of the model, what it represents, and why I actually think this is a stupid and amazing release from Rolex. Rolex has a deep and nuanced history around their dive watches. Originally, the first dive watch Rolex produced was the flagship sports watch, the Submariner, released in 1954. In the years that followed, Rolex collaborated with Comex and pioneered the invention of the helium escape valve, which were retrofitted on Submariner models. In 1967, Rolex released the seadweller. Since then, multiple new releases of the seadweller have seen the light of day, of course with aesthetic updates, movement updates, but the key feature of the seadweller, at least to me, was that it was the extreme dive watch. In the mid-1970s, Rolex released a watch that could reach 610 meters of water resistance. In the late 70s, that resistance increased to 1,220 meters or 4,000 feet for my non-metric viewers. What you see is a gradual pushing of the technical limits, with Rolex committed to seeing how deep they can go with this model line. It culminated in 2008 when Rolex released the Deepsea Dweller with an almost ridiculous depth rating of 3,900 meters or about 12,000 feet. That's deep. They also released a deep blue version, which was a tribute to James Cameron's journey to the bottom of the Mariana Trench in his submersible, the Deepsea Challenge. Celebrating this feat of engineering and human exploration was very much in keeping with the legacy of Rolex. Finally, in 2017, Rolex released a new Sea Dweller with only 1,220 meters of water resistance. This watch was, for all intents and purposes, a toned-down version of the previous iterations, or just a larger version of the Submariner. Still with dive credentials, but to some it came across as a move away from the tool watch ethos of Rolex. This was to some just the bigger Submariner, which illustrates well how hard it is to be Rolex sometimes. Although I don't feel sorry for them in any way. Now, Rolex has released a Deepsea and the Deepsea Challenge. The base Deepsea is largely reminiscent of the previous Deepsea Sea Dweller in deep blue. I won't be covering it in this video because I think the Deepsea Challenge is infinitely more interesting. By and large, I expect that watch fans will be divided in regards to the release of the Deepsea Challenge. On the one hand, there will be a group decrying this watch as utterly stupid, functionally unwearable, and essentially impractical. Others will see it as a return of the seadweller line to its roots and a testament to the Rolex's continued commitment to engineering excellence and pushing the limits of what a dive watch can do. The watch has a depth rating of 11,000 meters, which to everyone except for James Cameron is fundamentally useless. The Deepsea Challenge is probably a thoroughly unwearable watch. Why? It's 50 millimeters in diameter. The crystal alone is 9.5 millimeters thick. The overall thickness is 2.3 centimeters. Even the Casio G-shock Mudmaster GWG isn't that thick, and that's a big boy. I know very few people that can pull off a 50 millimeter watch, and if you have to ask, no, it's not going to fit under the cuff of your shirt. It shouldn't be something anybody except maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger can wear. But having said that, I'm a skinny guy and I happily wear the Mudmaster. It's oversized and my friends make fun of it, but the watch represents a ruggedness and functionality where I think the intention is for you to not give a hoot about how it wears. Following the initial release pictures, I saw myself thinking the same about the challenge. Yes, it's aesthetically unwearable, but I can also see someone wearing it anyway. This watch tells me that Rolex hasn't completely forgotten its heritage. It's not just a high-end aspirational watch brand, but one that is proud of its heritage and willing to produce watches that honor that heritage. This watch reminds me of the Rolex Deepsea Special, an experimental watch built for one purpose and one purpose alone. Rolex demonstrates with that watch that they're not just in it to sell ultra-popular watches. For those that complained about the Sea Dweller just being the bigger sub, now you have a real Deepsea and the Challenge. Ridiculous depth rating watches in sizes that are completely contrary to the current trend of smaller watches. You complain that Rolex doesn't respect their tool heritage? This is a tool watch. This watch is also an FU to its competitors. I love following car manufacturers when they compete on who can get the highest top speed or the most miles per battery charge or the fastest 0 to 100. The Veyron, the Hennessy, the Koenigsegg, the SSC. Take the Chiron for Bugatti. It's a $4 million car. It's gorgeous. It does 400 kilometers per hour and it's a thoroughly impractical car. It has 2 seats. You'll need to fill it up at the gas station every 7 minutes and you have to send it back to the manufacturer to have the tires changed. This watch is Rolex's Chiron, albeit nowhere near as aesthetically pleasing. Omega released their Planet Ocean that can go to 6,000 meters. This Rolex feels like their hold my beer moment. They doubled the depth rating. There's a competitiveness and a one-upmanship that from a business perspective makes no sense. I mean, seriously, Rolex doesn't need to work any harder to sell all their watches, but they did this anyway. That's just, in the words of Johnny Lawrence, badass. You have to respect that. I liked it when the CEO of Volkswagen said, build me a car that can go 400 kilometers an hour that is also luxurious and beautiful. And I love that Rolex built this hideous and beautiful brick of a watch sticking their middle finger at their competitors. It also represents something else, innovation. This watch is made in titanium. No, it's not the first time. They did that on the caseback of the previous Rolex Deepsea. This time though, it's all titanium and they are actively marketing it as RLX titanium and the crown has received a specific indication of the material, 2 dots and a dash. Note though that this is a little of Rolex's usual branding mumbo jumbo. RLX titanium is functionally grade 5 titanium, but Rolex states that it is their special selection of grade 5 titanium. The thing that I do note though is that they are branding it. There is potential that they will use this material again in other watches. That's what the branding indicates. Are we going to see an RLX titanium Submariner soon? Likely not. Cerachrome bezels took a while, but eventually they made their way all the way through the line. I just don't see why they would brand it unless it's going to be a potential future core of their manufacturing. You don't brand something once and then never again. This is where a Rolex expert tells me they've done this one and done technology thing several times and I'm forgetting about example A, B, and C. But I can't think of one myself. When the Rolex Explorer came out in two-tone, people were divided. A tool watch classic in two-tone on one hand, and a luxury watch with respect of heritage in the other. The seadweller 43mm, not tool watch enough. The Deepsea Challenge, too tool watchy. This is a completely unwearable watch at a ridiculously high price that I can definitely see someone wearing anyway. It's stupid. It's ridiculously well made. It's too expensive. It's probably worth it. It's a paradox. It's a middle finger to the competitors. It's cool. It's stupid. It's the Rolex G-shock. What does it mean to you? Comment below. Like and subscribe if you like my content, and thanks for logging in. Cheers.